I thought I'd share with you some thoughts this week on this MW1000 which I recently bought for installations, comparing it to the trestles that I've used for years now, and thoughts on the pros and cons of it. And then I'm going to touch on some issues we're having with our spray equipment at the moment. So starting with the MW1000, it's an expensive bit of kit. I should have looked up the cost. I think it was 600 or so on its own. Plus I wouldn't get it without also buying this set of clamping parts, because that's where it really comes into its own, is being able to use these clamps with the MFT system, clamping parts on. And this is something I've never had or done before. Although I've got Festool tools, I've never had an MFT or this kind of bench dog style setup. So I felt it was time to get something like this for installations, because I felt like my back was starting to go again. I've had a slip disc in the past and it just really wasn't worth risking that again. Okay, I could have just made a taller workbench, and in fact I do have that option in the van. I've got this just tucked in there. There's a top that fits on these trestles, which brings the work table up to a decent height. But I've just always found it's wobbly. You don't have the bench dogs for clamping. Yes, you could make a top like that, but I saw this new bit of kit and I really liked the compactness, the way you can fit your sustainers in it. Like anything Festool, it's got lots of very clever, well thought out hidden features, and I took the plunge and I went for it. And it really has transformed installations to be able to just work conveniently at this height. Pull out your clamping things however you need them. You can put those clamps on the side and clamp something upright, say for planing an edge, that sort of thing. You've got your extension table, so you can either just bring it in like that, which is big enough for some jobs, or that extension table will kind of clip on to any side. It is perfect for power tool cuts, and this is something that occurred to me since using it, is if you're using a jigsaw, a rail saw, this height is just right. It's about 900mm. I do, however, still go back to this quite short trestle that I made years and years ago, because I find that's just right for a hand saw cut. It's difficult to do it too high up on the MFT type height. Now, when you're thinking about workbenches, the ideal height for power tools, even hand planes, sanding, that sort of thing, is around about halfway between your wrist and your elbow height. So this 900mm height is about right for me and for most people, I think, and that is the height roughly the height we've got our workbenches at in the workshop. So I wasn't going to do a detailed review of this bit of kit, because you can find that on Peter Parfitt's page, the New Brit Workshop, and I'll put a link to that. But just to briefly talk about how I found it, it is very sturdy. I'm very happy with how strong that is. It can be levelled with an adjustable foot down here, and even though this worktop is cantilevered, it is as sturdy as I need it to be for an installation. The option of the extension table is great. One downside that I was a bit surprised about and not too happy about is that the bench dogs, the spacings of the holes here, I was hoping to use them with the Peter Parfitt style method, using these Veritas bench dogs that you can get from Axminster. You can get 2 short and 2 long ones, and the system works such that if you put a piece of wood across your table, perhaps with the extension, you could butt your piece of wood up to 2 short dogs, so it's held in line there, and you can put 2 long dogs such that your cutting rail, the Festool guide rail, would sit perfectly at a right angle to your workpiece. And I had that in mind when I bought this, but was a bit disappointed to find that the spacings between the holes doesn't quite allow a 300mm shelf width, which is just quite a common width. I think you can make it work with this top, but you just don't have much space for squaring. You want a bit of space between the dog holes to make sure that you're sure that you're pushing stuff tight to things and they're square. I just assumed I'd be able to do that with this extension, but as you can see, the arrangement of the holes doesn't land as near to the edge as it does on this one. And also, when you engage this with the edge track of this top, there's no way of precisely placing it. It can sit on this edge or on this edge, but it can move, and you can't just snap it in and know that you've then got a line of holes that lines up perfectly to your extension table. So that for me was a little bit of a disappointment. The other disappointment is just the other day I was wheeling this back out of a house, and of course the idea of it is it's portable, it goes through a doorway, but it just snagged on the raised threshold, and a little thin plastic snapped off. So I'm about to get onto Festool and get a replacement, which I'm hoping they will do, because this is only 2 or 3 weeks old or so. So a bit of mixed experience. I don't exactly regret getting it, but it's got its downsides. The other thing to think about, if you're considering this, I'm sure you'll be thinking about it being compact to fit in the van. The option, the issue that we've had is typically the van gets rammed full for an installation, and this still doesn't really quite fit in. And yes, you could lift it on top, but then it's quite heavy. So what we've done on the last couple of installations is, if it's a 2-day one, we'll take the kit, and then we'll end up taking that on the second day. What I do intend to do is to just rejig the van a bit. So if you see the racking that we've got here, which does have some Festool on top, I'm thinking to just chop that in half so that the cart sits in there and holds some toolboxes, so it wouldn't exactly take up extra space. It would make sense. However, you've then got a very heavy loaded cart, which is another risk to my back to take it out on a single man installation. Festool have thought about that, because the idea of the design is that when it's in your van, you can bring it to the edge of the van and then tip it down onto its back. And you see these bits of plastic here, they are designed for it to rest on and drag on in the back of the van. So you'd tip it back, you'd sort of drag the wheeled base, which does have a convenient handle, so you sort of drag that off the back of your van, down onto the floor using this like a fulcrum, and then you get the thing upright. So it's been cleverly thought through in that you can do that, but the reality is that to do that you have to have a lot of space in the van. So the van has to be half empty to have that floor space to put it on its back and put it off like that. And generally you want to get this piece of kit out first, well at least I do. I just want to go get my workstation set up. So it's just not quite working in practice as well as I thought. So that's something to consider if you're looking at it. Now, as a general update, I thought I'd just show you some issues we're having with our bit of spray equipment. So you don't mind just being on this video, do you, Brady? Always talking about you. So yeah, what do you want us to talk through the issue that we've got with the threading a bit?
Yeah. So the thread on the G40 gun we have has started to wear. So when we go to put the tip guard, which is assembled like this with the spray tip, which just slips inside like so.
It's just not engaging, is it?
It doesn't seem to engage with the threads.
Yeah, so we've just found that the gun and the tip guard themselves all seem to have worn, and we were hoping it was just the tip guard and we could get one of them. We were having some issues with sourcing the right one, but it seems that the gun thread itself has worn to the point where it won't screw on safely, and with the high pressure you're working with this air-assisted airless system, it's a bit dangerous, and the tip was just popping off. So we're trying to source the right bit, but we're looking at maybe having to replace the gun, which is setting all the jobs back, so that's quite inconvenient. So that's a little update for you on where we're at. Lots else I could say, but I hadn't posted this weekend, which was partly because my son was back in hospital last week, which I won't go into in great depth, but one of the reasons that we're trying to build this systemized business with staff and standardized ways of doing things is to give me and my family that freedom. If my son has health issues again, that we can know that money's being made in the workshop and eventually hand over the installation side of things. But that's the sticking point that I'm finding it hardest to hand over at the moment. So typically unplanned posting by me, but I hope that's okay. Do comment, and if you've got any other questions about this cart or the spray gun setup that we use, so I know I've only touched on things, then feel free to ask or give me advice if you know more about either. Okay, thanks for watching and see you next time.